What happens when a city is unprepared for a natural disaster? Let's take a journey to the eastern Libyan city of Derna, a place with a rich history, but also one marred by violence and political conflict. Prior to the flood, Derna was already grappling with the repercussions of a nation divided. Political infighting had been the order of the day, with rival administrations in Tripoli and the east vying for control since 2014. Derna, like the rest of Libya, was caught in the crossfire, its infrastructure neglected and underfunded. For years, the city's dams had not received the maintenance they needed, a ticking time bomb waiting for the right moment to explode. And beyond the dams, the city itself bore the scars of years of violence, with rebuilding efforts continually stalled by political gridlock. The state of the infrastructure was a reflection of the deep-seated issues within the country. Corruption, financial mismanagement, and a lack of investment had left Libya, and Derna in particular, woefully unprepared for what was to come. A storm was brewing, both literally and metaphorically, ready to test the resilience of a city and a nation already on the brink. And then the unthinkable happened. In September 2021, the skies above Derna opened up. The heavens released an onslaught of rain, a torrential downpour like nothing the city had ever experienced. The city, situated in the eastern part of Libya, found itself at the mercy of the elements. Unbeknownst to many, a silent threat was looming. Two dams, the city's primary defense against floods, were on the brink of failure. For nearly 2 decades, since 2002, these structures had been neglected. Maintenance was scarce, and the once sturdy barriers showed signs of wear and tear. As the rain relentlessly hammered down, the dams were pushed beyond their limits. The dams, once symbols of human ingenuity, now became harbingers of disaster. It was not a matter of if they would fail, but when. And fail they did. The barriers gave way under the immense pressure of the deluge. Like a tidal wave, the trapped waters were set free, rushing towards the unsuspecting city with terrifying force and speed. The floodwaters swept through Derna, turning streets into rivers and homes into islands. The city was engulfed in a sea of chaos. The water was ruthless, claiming everything in its path. Buildings crumbled, infrastructure was destroyed, and countless lives were uprooted. The disaster was not just a test of the city's resilience, but also a damning indictment of years of neglect and corruption. The failure of the dams was not just due to the force of nature, but also a result of human neglect. The lack of maintenance on the dams was a ticking time bomb that, unfortunately, exploded in the worst possible way. The city was left devastated, with over 11,000 lives lost and 30,000 people displaced. A city once bustling with life was now a haunting reminder of the disaster that had unfolded. The floodwaters may have receded, but the scars of the disaster were indelibly etched into the fabric of Derna. In the wake of the flood, Derna was a city in ruins. Debris scattered, and the once humming streets lay silenced by the disaster. The aftermath was a harsh reflection of the city's tragic loss, with over 11,000 lives claimed by the floodwaters and an estimated 30,000 individuals displaced from their homes. In the face of such devastation, the nation rallied together, showing a spirit of unity that transcended the usual political boundaries. Offers of accommodation and free medical services poured in from across Libya. Yet the distribution of this aid was as scattered as the rubble that littered Derna's streets. The process was disorganized, revealing the cracks in Libya's fractured political system. The flood had not just laid bare the physical structures of the city, it had also exposed the inadequacies of the government's response. The dams, their maintenance neglected for years, had finally given way under the pressure of the deluge. The failure of these crucial infrastructures was a stark reminder of the consequences of political infighting and the absence of a united front. Responsibility for the disaster was deflected from one party to another. The Prime Minister of the Tripoli government acknowledged accountability for the dam's maintenance but not the deaths caused by the flooding. On the other side, the Speaker of the Eastern Administration described the flooding as an incomparable natural disaster, subtly skirting around the issue of responsibility. The flood had effectively turned the spotlight on the country's political leaders, and their responses, or lack thereof, were under scrutiny. Yet, amidst the chaos and finger-pointing, the focus had to shift to the immediate challenges. The need of the hour was to find homes for the displaced population and to begin the daunting task of rebuilding the city. The disaster had laid bare the fatal consequences of political division and neglect. The floodwaters may have receded, but the aftermath had left a lasting imprint on the city of Derna. and indeed, the nation of Libya. But out of the tragedy, a rallying cry for unity arose. The flood that ravaged Derna, a city in eastern Libya, was a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. Yet, in the wake of such devastation, the response from the people of Libya was nothing short of inspiring. Libyans from across the country, regardless of their political affiliations, came together in a heartening display of unity. They rallied to support their fellow citizens in Derna through various acts of kindness and generosity. Offers poured in from all corners of the country, providing accommodations for those displaced and free medical services for those injured or ill. These gestures, though simple, were a testament to the unity and compassion that dwells within the hearts of the Libyan people. Even amidst the political divisions that have long plagued the nation, there were rare instances of cooperation between the rival administrations. Setting aside their differences, they worked hand in hand to provide aid to those affected by the flood. This collaboration, however infrequent, was a glimmer of hope, a sign that unity could indeed be achieved even in the most challenging circumstances. Yet it wasn't just the acts of kindness or the cooperation between rival factions that stood out. It was the spirit of the Libyan people, their resilience in the face of adversity. They refused to be defeated by the disaster, choosing instead to rise above it, to come together as one. This spirit of unity was a beacon of light in the darkness, a testament to their strength and perseverance. In the face of disaster, the people of Libya showed a remarkable spirit of unity and resilience. And it is this unity, this resilience, that will lead them forward, helping them rebuild their lives and their city stronger and better than before. As the city begins to rebuild, the question remains, is Libya prepared for the next disaster? The floodwaters may have receded, but the challenges posed by the aftermath of the Derna flood are far from over. The immediate priority is rehoming the 30,000 people who have been displaced. It is a task of monumental proportions, requiring resources, coordination, and compassion. It is a task that will test the unity that emerged from the tragedy, as the country works to provide shelter and stability for those most affected. But the task doesn't end with rehousing. The city of Derna itself must be rebuilt, brick by brick, road by road, and life by life. It's a daunting endeavor, further complicated by the fact that Derna had already suffered from years of violence and lack of rebuilding efforts even before the flood. And then there is the need for accountability. The catastrophic flooding was not just a result of heavy rainfall, but also a failure of infrastructure. The dams that burst had not been properly maintained since 2002, a symptom of the wider neglect that has plagued Libya's infrastructure for years. The flood was a stark reminder of the price of such neglect. Looking forward, it is clear that improvement in infrastructure maintenance is crucial to prevent future disasters. This is not just about dams or roads, but about a commitment to the safety and well-being of the Libyan people. It is about acknowledging and correcting the shortcomings that the Derna flood so brutally exposed. The country's political leaders have a responsibility here, not just to deflect blame but to take proactive steps for change. The Prime Minister of the Tripoli government acknowledged accountability for the dam's maintenance, but there is a need for more than just words. There is a need for action. Only time will tell if the lessons from Derna's flood have truly been learned. This is not just a chapter in Libya's history, but a turning point, a chance for the country to emerge stronger, more united, and better prepared for the future. Because as the city of Derna knows all too well, the cost of neglect is far too high. So what can we learn from the flood in Derna? This catastrophic event, one of the most devastating in the annals of history, has left indelible marks on the landscape of Derna and the hearts of its people. It has shown us how political divisions and lack of maintenance can escalate a natural disaster into a national tragedy. The flood was not just a result of heavy rainfall, but a culmination of years of neglect, mismanagement, and political infighting that left Derna's infrastructure in a state of disrepair. The bursting of the dams, a direct consequence of this neglect, claimed the lives of over 11,000 people and displaced 30,000 more. The aftermath of the flood brought out a sense of unity among the Libyans, transcending the political divisions that have long plagued the country. Offers of help poured in from across the nation, reflecting a collective spirit of resilience and compassion. Yet, the response was disorganized, the distribution of aid mired in the same political dysfunction that contributed to the scale of the disaster. This underscores the urgent need for political accountability and effective governance to prevent such disasters in the future. The tragedy of Derna serves as a stark reminder of the cost of unpreparedness and the importance of unity in the face of disaster.